Hey everyone, it's Tom Seymour with VHS Massacre. I figured I'd do a quick update. It's been a little while. So for those of you who don't know, I run VHS Massacre Films. So I direct and put out independent feature-length films, narrative films, and also documentaries. As of late, a lot more documentaries. So one of the coolest things is I'm approaching a finished cut of my latest documentary called Video Dreams. This is the some of the artwork from blockbuster dreams to streaming screens, a filmmaker's journey through a vanishing world. And it has Lloyd Kaufman, Debbie Rochon, and some archive footage from Joe Bob Briggs. Many others, myself, Tim Cooley, James Richardson. So basically the film tracks the last 30 years of low budget independent filmmaking. It's seen through my perspective and other people I've worked with, but I think it should be a pretty interesting watch. So yeah, when you're getting close, let's say when you have a film that's 90% done, pushing forward to that extra 10% to try to get it to 100, well, you very rarely do, is particularly difficult. My awesome wife went through, we watched it together. We literally found 40 grammatical errors. Now, these are tiny. Like, it's just like if you're gonna have a card with a graphic in it and you're gonna use periods and proper punctuation, then you have to do that on every card you have. And if you're doing something stylistic where there's not punctuation, it's just a few lines with no punctuation, then that has to be the theme. And then also when there's sort of bullet points and you have certain you've created a certain way of having sort of bullet points, and that has to be consistent throughout. So it's little tiny stuff. Maybe one or two spelling errors, but it was virtually all little tiny thing. Extra space here, extra comma here, remove the comma here. So that stuff can get maddening. Basically, it's close to a 90-minute film. It's probably going to be about 85 minutes. So it can get pretty difficult. But I've recently got some really good feedback, which is great. My friend Michael Ransky, Debbie Rochon, Paul Polino, a number of people have watched it and given me some good feedback. But overall, it's been pretty positive. So I'm gaining some confidence that it may be all right. You never know with these things. It's weird. When I was younger, I used to be actually very confident about my work. And often it wasn't that good. And then as of lately, I've been really critical of my own stuff. And it seems to be okay. For instance, American Expendables is a feature-length documentary about the film catalog of North American Pictures. And basically, I'll get the Blu-ray. Give me a second. It's a really beautiful Blu-ray, distributed by Vinegar Syndrome, created by ETR Media, which is one of their partners. So the front slipcover looks like this, and then it's got this awesome Bolo Young action figure back cover. Very cool stuff. And then the actual Blu-ray looks like this. Lots of very cool extras. Actually, it's 3 documentaries in one. You got American Expendables. You've got the 25-minute documentary called MacLeod. There Can Be Only One. That's actually about King of Royalty-Free Music, Kevin MacLeod. And then lastly, you have an 80-minute action film called Fountain of Death. That's like essentially a director's cut of Landed College Profits. Very weird, low-budget movie, but it's on there. Plus, you got extended interviews with Lloyd Kaufman and Debbie Rochon. And film also features John Brennan from Last Drive-In, which is pretty cool. And so what's cool about this is The pre-sales on this are pretty good. I think it's sold out of. It has not sold out. It is sold about 3/4 of available. The available run. I think, if this is correct, there's 1,000 slipcover versions and 1,000 standard versions. So, yeah, this was a really interesting thing to have happen. We did this little doc. It was a project that fell apart at one point. I picked it back up. We managed to get some cool interviews, and I was talking to Debbie Rashan about it, and I was like, "Do you think Troma would take it?" She's like, "Yeah, maybe. Let's. She agreed to be in it, and we pitched it to Troma. They actually didn't want it. They couldn't take it at the time because they had they had all the films scheduled for that year, and so we're like, well, let's go through MVD Group, which is MVD Group's amazing as well. So we're lucky to be able to have gone through them, and we talked to them about physical media. And they weren't so sure, and so we were just thinking physical media would not happen. And then I was on Greg Brewer's show Fanzine, and he mentioned ETR Media, and I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if this thing is, of that caliber, And he's like, yeah, we'll try it, So reached out to them, and they were like, yeah. So fast forward to now, the thing debuts on Vinegar Syndrome, and I think initially it was exclusive on Vinegar Syndrome, so, distributed by them, And that was something, it's like, man, I never thought I'd get there. It's really a sort of roundabout way, Vinegar Syndrome would never take one of my narrative films, I don't think. But it's very interesting that they were able to we were able to because of the nature of the documentary about a catalog of films, that it kind of lined up just right, something that Vinegar Syndrome would really be into. So it worked out really well. So I'm psyched about that, and it really just goes to show you if you want to make independent films and stuff like that, you can do it, and just have faith that if you get this thing finished, whatever you're working on, get it to the finish line, and then try to put it out there, and it's possible some things will happen. It doesn't always happen. I've had a lot of films that I've spent years on, and they're just kind of duds, It does happen, but you got to keep going, In my career, pretty much the first 2 feature-length films didn't really go anywhere. It was the third one, So, and third one's very difficult to make, because you've called in every favor you had on the first one, It's like, it gets to be really, really difficult, So, the other thing is that, so here are some cool posters. This is not an official poster. I just want to make clear. This is not an official poster from ETR or Vinegar Syndrome. This is just something I like to do for myself when I finish a film, is to sort of do something like this. Sometimes I do festival I'll do a poster that has all the laurels on it, because that's kind of it's a reminder of what the film has done. You win some awards and they feel like you really have passed muster, so it's kind of a cool thing to have. This one was just all about like ETR and Vinegar Syndrome and just being proud of that, but this is another example. This one this is the original cover art. Oh, by the way, this artwork, it was created by the artists at ETR Media, so that's not my artwork. And then same thing with this. This artwork was created at the people from the people by by the people at Troma Entertainment, and then But what I did is I added this trauma marquee on top. And so same thing with here. I added the Vinegar Syndrome marquee on top. It's just cool. So when I print these out just to have them at home, it kind of has, some street cred, with the two, Vinegar Syndrome and Trauma. So that was kind of a nice feeling. Not everyone's going to get this, like, why is it that cool to be distributed by those two brands? But if you're in the horror community, it's kind of cool. It's kind of where you want to be at, So some of the mainstream horror companies are like, believe it or not, there are filmmakers out there who don't think the mainstream horror companies are that cool. They are much more into the underground stuff, the grittier stuff made by regular folks, So, yeah, I thought that was kind of neat. And then Exorcism of Fleet Marriage, that's available for free. That's streaming. One of the things... Oh, yeah. This is very cool. American Expendables. So just to tell you, for filmmakers out there who are interested in what to do at certain points for your film, this is what I would suggest. This has worked for me. Doesn't mean that this is going to work for everyone. And there may be filmmakers out there that think, this is not the way to go. But what we did with American Expendables and also VHS Massacre 2 was that we hit the film festivals hard. We picked smaller, independent, and underground festivals that we thought would gravitate towards what VHS Massacre and American Expendables were. I still have these lofty dreams still, resonating in my head somewhere. So I think we entered two of the top ones. I think we entered Austin and maybe Slam Dance. And then some other big one, San Francisco Indie Fest, which we actually ended up winning. So that was kind of a huge deal. But then other big ones like Chicago Horror and stuff like that. So the idea, though, is to try to, depending on your budget, no one's got any money. It's very difficult. But if you're really careful, some of the smaller festivals are not that expensive. And so, if you're going in with a friend, if they could put $200 or $300 in towards festivals, you can put $200 or $300 towards festivals. You find deals, festivals that are $15, $20, $30. You try to enter about 20 or 30 festivals. Maybe you get into 10, and maybe you win 5. That kind of thing. But the idea is, if your film played in 10 cities around the United States, around the world, that's great. VHS Massacre 2 played in 30 cities around the world, won 23 awards. American Expendables played in 15 cities around the world, and everywhere from LA, New York, Florida, like Tampa, and then Germany and festivals, India. There's a lot of cool ones like that. But the point is, it makes you feel great. You win some awards, and then when you go to get the film distributed, either you can try to self-distribute. That may work for you. I use a middle person. I've been using MVD Group, who I think's great. I've used Trauma, but then too, if you can also do it in like piecemeal. Like MVD does the digital, but then Vinegar Syndrome and ETR were doing the physical media. And then if you can have someone do theatrical, if that's I know I haven't had that done in years, but I suppose it's possible. But what we actually did was festivals first, streaming second. So American Expendables on like Tubi, just got a Night Flight. Night Flight was kind of a big deal because I think that was part of USA Network, and that was kind of also kind of where the cool kids were. It's kind of like Shudder in that way. It's a little more culty, and then also this new thing called Cineverse, which is pretty cool. So festivals first, streaming second, then physical media, you wouldn't think that. You wouldn't think that's right. But for a film that you're trying to get the word out on and trying to make it have like name recognition, you kind of need that fame. You need the festivals and the streaming so that when you go to do physical media, you make sure it's like a really interesting physical media release with tons of extras and all that stuff. But if you think about it, if no one's heard or seen your film, physical media is going to be really hard. So think of it in terms of you're making your film famous and trying to, and then maybe there's a physical media possibility at the end. So that's kind of how the plan has worked. Obviously, American Expendables, the films in North American Pictures, worked because it's got a catalog of different films. It had we got Cynthia Rothrock in it, and Debbie Rochon, Lloyd Kaufman, John Brenner from The Last Drive-In, and so that sort of concoction, of people who would be like, oh, what's North, because people out there are like, oh, I love Not Quite Hollywood about the Australian exploitation films. Or I loved Cannon, Electric Boogaloo about Cannon films. Or I loved Corman's World about Roger Corman. So this is about North American Pictures. Some people really want that. They want someone to sort of curate a doc, for better or worse, about, like a catalog of film. It's if you can make it a fun watch, even though it's obvious we didn't put a fortune into it, people might really dig it. So that's something to think about. In regard to narrative films, Exorcism of Fleet Marriage is doing pretty well. And that is like, we rebranded this. It was called Mark of the Beast back in the day, but we did a full recut with a lot of extra footage and stuff like that. So it's a little more than a director's cut. And so we put it out in 2022, and it was, having exorcism in the title, which the film is very much about exorcism. So it's not like, it's true to the film, but having it that way, I think really did get a few extra eyes on it. So when you're thinking about doing horror, the title kind of has to say it all. So that's a really important thing to have to do. Anyway, that's about all I have for now. I think I hear the family coming home. So anyway, all right. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.